Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. Yesterday, we took a look at Danny Boy, London Derriere, Harmony Level 1. Look at that melody. It's this beautiful, elegant diatonic melody, and we harmonized it using simple diatonic chords. Today, Level 2. Well, what's that going to be like? Let's find out. So if level 1 was simple diatonic chords coupled to the melody, level 2 begins to separate the individual voices and introduce contrary motion and a little bit of chromaticism. That's what we're going to look at today. But first, let's just look back at what we did yesterday, just as a refresher. You can also just watch the whole video, but here we are. Here's what we had yesterday. That's the first two phrases of the melody. The chords work smoothly, and in sixths like that, well, a lot of sixths anyway, we get a nice sonorous quality. However, each voice of the harmony moves in parallel with the melody. When the melody goes up, each voice goes up. When the melody goes down, the same. And as a result, everything is what we call coupled. It's kind of locked sounding. It's not such a horrible sound, but it is a little bit, I don't know, it wears on the ear after a while. I'll just say that. Because of that, contrary motion is a thing. I'll just give you an example of what I mean by contrary motion here. Let me just play something for you. So if I play the F scale, I can harmonize it in parallel. Or I can harmonize it in contrary motion. And I get a different result depending on how I manage those things. Contrary motion is a way of emphasizing interior voices. Well, when you start doing that, you get some interesting results. Let's look at my harmonization of the next two phrases in London Derriere. All right, so let's just take a look at the screen, and we're going to listen to it first, and then we'll kind of break it into little chunks. Now, I'm still keeping very strong primary chord centers in my thinking, and this song is really based around tonic-dominant relationships, but there are passing chords, and I would just say secondary effects as the voices move in different directions. And if you look at the screen, you can see it really looks different from the first example that we just played. All right. So those of you with sharp ears will have probably already noticed that I'm using seventh chords now instead of just triads. For instance, the very first motion, the melody goes up, while the bass descends. And you can see I'm heading for a simple, F sound, right? But that F sound is F major 7. It's a beautiful quality, right? And that voice is put here in the tenor, bass, tenor, alto, soprano, 4-voice writing. And that's sort of classic, old school, 18th century, writing. Look again, the tenor and bass move down, the soprano and alto basically move up, although there's a little bit of wiggle. Here we go. Nice, right? Now, in the next section, the melody is active, quarter notes, and I let the bass be active, but the interior voices, not so much. Right? That's a cadence point. We've arrived at a sort of back home again. We're on the 4 chord now, and the bass, oddly enough, is, am I missing a bass note? Oh, yeah, I made a leap down. So downbeat is B flat, and then that F is holding. It's the 5th of the chord. And I've let the tenor voice move down all by itself, sort of a fun sound. And here's a lovely barbershop harmony moment. And I'm going to open this up a bit so we can take a closer look at it. So again, we've got contrary motion. The melody is climbing up. It's the same phrase that started it. And the bass is descending. And this time, instead of descending from B flat down to F, we're going to descend to the 5th of the F chord to create a kind of a propulsive forward motion, because we're heading home. That's where we're heading, right? And having the 5th in the bass, the C sort of living down there, really creates the dominant tonic effect. Well, look what the bass does. This is the most interesting thing to me, I think, in these two measures. E, D, D flat, C. While the top voices do this. That's a kind of a beautiful sound, right? And then D minor, and then this kind of gorgeous thing. That's a complicated chord we'll look at in a second, and it resolves outward to F. All right, so we've used something that we call secondary dominance here. This moment, if you look at all the notes, looks like C sharp diminished, right? G, C sharp, E. It's the top of an A7 chord. A7 is the 5 of D minor, and the next thing that we get, for some reason I'm missing a voice in here. There we go, I've put it in. The next thing that we get is D minor, and the D is doubled. There's a D in the bass and a D up here. So this sound goes A7, A is the 5 of D, D minor is like the 5 of G, and this kind of looks like G7, doesn't it? B, F, G, except look at the bass, D flat. Well, this has a special name in harmony. It's called a Neapolitan sixth, and it almost always precedes the 5th of the tonic chord when you're going to play an inverted 1 chord. Boy, that sounded like a lot of gobbledygook. I like to think of it as a tritone substitution for G7. And you can hear the way things open out. It's gorgeous, right? The G flows up to the A, the D flat flows down to the C, and the net result sounds like a very quick circle of fifths. Contrary motion, beautiful, kind of conventional harmonies. And now a kind of a Disney quality sound. We have what sounds to me like a sus chord over the C. And at the end, just a little parallelisms in sixths. And the resolution is to another major 7 chord, F major 7. So with this arrangement, I've broken out of the coupled parallelisms, the rhythmic lock of level 1 into level 2. And level 2 begins to treat each individual voice of the harmony, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, like an independent beastie. These chords are still very much locked into the diatonic world of F major. Most of them are from F major. And the ones that aren't are secondary dominants pushing us towards important centers of that key. Level 3 is going to take us a little bit further. We'll get into surprise chords. We might even consider some rhythmic variety as well. In the meantime, this is enough for today, right? Look at this closely and analyze the relationships of those things. You might look up Neapolitan sixth chords too. It's kind of mind-blowing, and it took me a long time to get my head wrapped around how it works, but it's a beautiful effect. You can think of it as just a way to use a secondary dominant. That's another way to consider it. Also, looking at this, look at how the diminished chord functions like a dominant chord. Diminished chords are passing chords, and they're important passing chords because they're like dominants. Well, all this is kind of about conventional harmony, and as you know, I don't really think that that's the most important thing in the world, but understanding it can be really powerful, and the sounds are awesome, right? Well, I hope this has been useful. Subscribe. I'm coming back with level 3. Like this video and leave me a question, all right? I know there's a lot here to unpack. I'll see you next time.